all of a sudden, there was this presence in the room with me. I didn't see anything, but I could feel this presence there. And there was more love than I could ever describe. And it was overwhelming. It was just so great. And then it was like this love was just entering right into me, absorbing me. The next thing I heard words. Oh, and somehow I was connected to a being, or what I called it at that time was positive energy force. And I knew I was connected, but I didn't understand any of that. And then I got words, and the words were in my right ear and almost external. And it said, "This is where you came from, and this is where you will return." That took away my fear of death.
My guest today is Lynn K. Russell, who had a near-death experience in 1972, a spiritually transformative experience that was even more significant in 1973. But it was really her grandfather's death that propelled her into a lifelong study of near-death experiencers. So, Lynn, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
So I think chronologically, the first thing really that happened in your life was the death of your grandfather when you were about 8 years old. And that's really what started this 70-year spirituality journey. And one of the things I'm excited about talking to you about today, Lynn, is that when somebody's had these experiences, it's not just the experience, it's all the wisdom that you accumulate in the time since you've had them. So I'm really excited with your depth of wisdom to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you.
So why don't we start with the death of your grandfather, because that was so significant for you.
Well, what was significant about that was that I was raised in an atheist home.
Oh,
And so when I went to my mother, because I was frightened that someday I was going to die, and so I went to my mom and asked her, "What happens when you die?" And she said, "Nothing, you just disappear." And that terrified me because I didn't want to disappear. I'm a little kid. So that got my interest up about where would I be able to find those kind of answers. And I didn't start studying. What I started to do was to become very interested. And then I started to go to different churches around our neighborhood. And then when I was in my mid-teens, that's when I began studying near-death experience, and not near spirituality. And uh, that was in the mid-50s. And so I actually did. And so that's what I spent the rest of my life looking for truth, wherever that was going to take me, because I didn't have preconceived notions about what to expect. And so I was completely open to whatever came. And then in the 70s, um, the new spirituality, the new thought kind of came into to be. And I just jumped on board. That was so beautiful. And so I stayed with that. And that's where the real big growth happened, was in that bit when I was studying religions. I got understood their background. I understood how they got to be where they are today, but I didn't understand um, anything about death. Nothing, So I didn't get my answers there, but I did start to get answers when I got into the spirituality.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think it's ironic that you had a near-death experience in 1973, which was, I think, the same year that Dr. Raymond Moody's book, Life After Life, came out.
It was his book came out in 1975.
Okay, so
So
2 years after. Okay.
yeah, actually, I had the death experience first, and it was extremely small. And I actually sort of poo poo it because it didn't do anything for me at that time. However, it has since. Um, what happened was that I was very, very, very ill. I had some illness, and I don't know what it was. I knew I was dying. And I went to the hospital and they sent me home. I had flu, they said. But I knew I was dying. So I was laying in bed and all of a sudden I was out of my body. Just, I was a, there was no sensation or just literally bang. 1 second I'm in my body, the next I'm not. And I had a guide with me. I don't know who he was, but anyway, this guide was there and he was taking me up through a tunnel and I could see a spark of light, at the end of the tunnel. And that was it. You know what? I knew I was dead and I was curious about what was going on. But I didn't have any of those feelings of love and comfort. And I just felt okay. No, like there was no fear, but there was, it was more curiosity than anything because I have an over curiosity gene. If this big voice comes down from above and it's very booming and it says, take her back. It's not her time. So my guide said, but she died. The voice said, take her back. She has much left to do. And the next second, I was back in my body. I knew I had had a death experience, but I knew it died. That part I knew. But I didn't put the pieces together because I was so sick. I thought maybe it was hallucination. I really wondered whether it was just part of, my illness. I got better very quickly. By the next day, I was fine and to life again and so forth. So that was good.
That is good. And then you had your big spiritually transformative experience. So you want to tell us about that one?
Yeah, that one was more significant because by that time I had done quite a lot of studying and so on. It was a year after the death experience. It fit in with what I had been reading and learning. And so what happened was that I was doing the dishes and I had 3 kids. I was a separated mom and a single parent. And so I had 3 kids, and at this particular time, all of the children were either away or quiet. The place was always quiet. So anyway, the first experience, I'm doing the dishes at the kitchen sink, and there's a window above the sink, and I'm looking out the window to a tree, to the apple tree that's out there, because it's spring and it's in bloom. So I'm looking at the tree, and all of a sudden, out of the blue, I became the tree. Literally became the tree. I don't mean I felt like simpatico. No, I was the tree, and the tree was me. There was no separation at all. And then I was every kind of life form I could think of. Every kind of life form, no matter what kind, how it was expressed. I became it and it became me. So that was the end of that one. It was a very quick experience. It was maybe 30 seconds. It was not very long at all. And so when I came back to myself, I was doing dishes and I was thinking, oh, that's cool. I just thought it was cool. But I didn't understand the significance. The next experience, because I had 3 experiences and they were days apart. But the next experience, I was wiping fingerprints of the whole wall. And this time I was as if my consciousness was taken over. I was no longer seeing the wall. I was seeing an atom with the nuclei and the electrons going around. And then that expanded to our solar system with the sun and the planets going around. And that expanded to our galaxy. And so it was like the micro to the macro. And while I was having that experience, I was also getting messages. And the messages was that this didn't just happen, that there was order and planning and intelligence behind all. oneness. And so that was cool. But then I got a message that upset me. I didn't like it at all. And it said, my being was intricately connected with the operation of the universe. And I did not like, because it sounded too much at that time, like, and I didn't understand. Like I had some big chore I had to do, some big thing that I couldn't possibly. The other thing is that how could my being have anything to do with the operation of the universe? I'm less than a speck of dust when you're talking about the whole universe. So I really discounted that one until I understood later. And then the next experience, that was the end of that experience. And the next experience, I'm in the hall, in the living room. It again is 2 or 3 days later. And I'm picking toys. And all of a sudden, there was this presence in the room with me. I didn't see anything. All I saw was my living room, but I could feel this presence there. And there was more love than I could ever describe. And it was overwhelming. It was just so great. Anyway, and then it was like this love was just entering right into me and absorbing me. And so, and then the next thing I heard words. Oh, and I was connected. Somehow I was connected to this, whatever it was. I knew it was a being. That's all I could say, a being. Or what I called it at that time was positive energy force. That's what I called it. And I knew I was connected, but I didn't understand any of that. And then I got words, and the words were in my right ear and almost external. And it said, this is where you came from, and this is where you will return. That took away my fear of death. Finally, that was like I was early 30s in those days. And so that really, really was good. That was good to have that experience. And after that, I used to be a very serious nail biter. In those days, I bit my nails down till really bad. And all of a sudden, one day, I looked down, I had nails. I never couldn't believe it. I'd stopped biting. So,
Do you think it was tied to the fear of death and releasing that?
well, I do think it has to do with the experience. I don't know how it would be. Yes. Yes, I think that it does have something to do with the experience that I had.
So, Lynn, we call them spiritually transformative experiences. And so what would you say, in what way did this transform you from how you were before you had those three experiences compared to afterwards?
Now, in the beginning, I'm honest, I couldn't understand it. I didn't quite understand. I just knew that everything was okay, but it did open doors for me for later when I started to do, and as I say, that was when the new age and the new thought kind of thinking was coming in. And so it opened doors for me. I was able to gain more and understand deeper. And then a few years later, maybe 10 years later, uh, I was, and my children were gone. And all of these things had happened. And I was reading Joel Goldsmith and the Course of Miracles. And the combination made me realize about the oneness. And it was like, oh, and that opened major doors. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you say about the oneness, tell the audience what you mean by that, because I think this is still a very difficult concept for most people to grasp.
Yes, it is. How I see oneness is that, and in the very beginning um, of whatever, there isn't a beginning. Certainly a beginning of our universe. we have source and nothingness. Absolutely nothing. Now, we have an intelligence that's beyond anything that you or I could ever come close to thinking about. I mean, it's just beyond. And then we know what we know about source is that the intelligence, we know that it is love, and we know that it is creative force. Okay. So, and universal consciousness. And so, and source uses the love is the essence of source. That's its being. It's like its soul, and that's what it uses to create with. So everything is created from source. Okay, so now we have this being that has all these abilities and not ability, but you know, I'm sorry, I can't think of the name. But anyway, these
Qualities, the good quality.
thanks. I'm stuck. These qualities and it's all by itself in nothingness. If we could ever imagine being in nothing, we would. It's very hard for us to even imagine it. If we put ourselves in blackness, nothing, no senses, no feelings, no nothing else. If that were really true, we would not know we exist. And if we did know that we exist because of our intelligence and so forth, then it wouldn't have any meaning because there's just me. And that doesn't have any feelings. And so Source had to create. So that's where creation began. Creation started nanoseconds after being like after that kind of if there was that kind of situation. But that's why um, we are is because. But what the source used to create with, it had to use itself because there was nothing else. And because it used itself, we are a part of that. We're not just part of that. We are it. We are source. There's only one being, one source, one entity that is living this existence. And this is part of what we, source, are creating for ourselves to experience.
Lynn, I am laughing. I am crying at the same time. You just explained so eloquently my experiences on the other side of being one. And it's so hard for people to understand that we are it. We are not a part of it. It is not outside of us. We are it. Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think you're helping so many people with this explanation.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
I hope people share this. So I want to go back to a couple of things. Nothingness is such a difficult concept. And I think a lot of people who have had near-death experiences talk about this as the void. Do you see those two as being similar since you've done so much studying of the near-death experiences?
Yes. Yes and no. Some people are in a void and there is nothing. Other people are in a void, but they know there's something there and they just don't see it. And they sometimes hear voices or, and they see a speck of light. Then the light gets bigger and enter into them. So, or enter into a death experience, whatever theirs is going to be. One of the big things that people need to understand, especially people who have had the experience, that love that you feel, that just is so overwhelming that you can't find words for it. That's you. You are feeling your own love because you are source. And you can't, you're feeling yourself.
Wow. Just wow. All right, let's go back to these 3 spiritually transformative experiences because I don't want to just gloss over them. I have a couple of questions.
Sure. Yeah.
I have a massive I can't talk today. I have a
Yeah.
massive fascination for trees. Massive. I'm part of the Archangel Ancient Tree Archive. I've done work with them. And I had a man who had a near-death experience who was tasked with going and cloning the ancient trees of the world. And the way that I see them is I think that they are much more than just oxygen providers for our planet. I think that they're antennas and they are living. I believe that they are sentient. And I wanted to have you elaborate in any way that you can, because I know that human words probably do not do justice to you becoming a tree. But can you give us any more inkling about what it meant when you became that tree and how you look at trees now?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That one of the things that I felt was absolute joy beyond description. I was so thrilled to be, to exist. It was like, wow, it wasn't just, gee, that's nice. No, it was absolute ecstasy at being, at existing, and to have this opportunity to express. That was one of the big, big things that I felt. Um, the other thing I felt was just love and giving, and giving to I don't know, giving to the world, giving to itself, giving to each other, the other trees, just giving. And it was just a beautiful experience.
So, how did you look at trees differently after this happened?
Just love them. Yeah, I'm a tree hugger.
Me too. I like to hug the trees and measure. I call them hugs, like how big they are. There's a beautiful white pine on a hike I went to the other day that had 2.5 hugs, and I have pretty long arms. Like it's such an old growth white pine tree. I love seeing these massive big trees everywhere.
Yeah.
So special. Okay, so that was one.
One of the things I just want
Go ahead.
to add a small piece here.
Sure.
Trees are plants, and plants are absolutely amazing. They are sentient beings. They have intelligence. They are not this little thing sitting in the corner. They can do amazing things. And and by the way, those of you who have plants in your home, they really care about you. And if you're away from home and something happened that was upsetting, they feel it and they're concerned for you. So we don't know about these things. Plants are absolutely amazing.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. All right. The second spiritually transformative experience you had, which was you were told that you were an operation or of the universe. Am I saying that correctly?
I, my being was part of
Part of
the
the
operation.
part of it? Okay. And you said you didn't understand it at the time that it was communicated to you. What do you understand it these many years later?
Oh, that's it. We are one. That's what and that's what that message. It scared me then because I thought it was a responsibility. Now I understand that it was just another way of helping me to understand about oneness.
Okay. Beautiful. All right. Then the last one was being positive energy, the being who was the positive energy force. Do you know who that being was now?
I think it was source. Yeah. How can it not be? That's all there is.
It is all there is. So I think one of the spiritual concepts that is very difficult to grasp is that we as a soul, where you've got your individual Lynness, I have my individual Laurie-ness, everybody watching has their individualness. It's very difficult to think that we would want to give that up to go back and become one. But really, the illusion is that we're this anyway. So, what would you tell people to help them feel maybe okay about that part?
Oh, I don't know. um, I guess, the people who have had death experience and shared their, I just love them. Thank you so, so much for sharing all of your experiences with the world, because you're changing the world. You're making it a better place. And so I guess I have a good friend right now who's very, very, very ill. And it's terminal, and she's terrified. And I want her to understand, first of all, that how wonderful, how beautiful death is, and the all the messages, all the people that, I mean, there's hardly anybody who doesn't talk about. You know that it's like 2% of people who have death experience have negative ones. All of the rest of them are positive, and all of the rest of them are filled with love and joy and ecstasy, and you just can't talk enough about it. So that's one of the things that I would tell people. The other is that you go home. It's home. It's We think we're home. This is an illusion. This is just, we're making this up as we go along. You know,
I completely agree with you. Beautiful. So, this is a great segue into your life's work, which has been studying and writing about these near death experiences. So, will you tell us how you came to do that and when you first started doing these interviews with people?
well, one of the things at the beginning, when I first started doing the research, I was doing the research for Dr. Jeffrey Long
Oh,
at,
sure.
yeah, at NDEs. And so I was doing the research for his first book, Evidence of the Afterlife. And at the beginning, I was just learning what happened after death. And that was nice, you know, and that was about my opinion. And then after a little while, after a few couple of hundred cases, I pretty well had that down. And so then I started to see the spiritual messages that were coming back from these people. And that's what got my interest. And that's what I mostly concentrate on, is the spiritual messages, our oneness, how this all became. And so that's what I write. And I write about how we can use this spirituality to our disconnectedness for ourselves, and to heal ourselves, and to feel better about life, and just to have a better life, period. I'm 87 and I love life. I'm alive. I don't want to go because I'm enjoying it so much. I know that I will go when I'm finished my job, because I know I have, this is why I came. And so I know that's true. But when I finish, it'll be my time. But in the meantime, I just am having a ball.
I love that. That's amazing. So, I would imagine that over the years, people have contacted you and asked questions. What do you think is the number one question that people ask you about all of this information you've collected about what's important about why we're here, etc.?
How do I get that feeling of crossing over the veil? That's the biggest question.
Interesting. Really?
Yeah. They want to know how they can get there. And
You mean while they're here, have that experience? Okay,
so,
sure.
I mean, like, well, people do. Um, Particularly people who meditate regularly, they often have um, NDE kind of experiences. Um, and so that's not unusual, you know. Um, there are other ways too, but you don't have to die, is what I'm saying. And I accepted that small, well, and then the STE. That's it. I haven't had any, big spiritual. It's all been studying and looking and putting pieces together. And so you don't have to be a meditator if you don't want to be. That's the best way, is meditating.
So there are a lot of people who are watching this, and these videos live on for a long time. What do you think are the most important things that you've learned, besides the one and the love and the oneness, that you want people to really know about our existence?
I want people to know how magnificent they are. People, we are so beautiful, like mind-boggling beautiful, and we don't see it. I used to be a family counselor, and I was blown away by how many people hated themselves, not disliked, hated. They would treat themselves worse than a criminal. And they were beautiful. They were absolute. And another thing is that you can accomplish way, way more than you are doing right now. You just don't realize it because you're so wrapped up in this separation. And this is not true. This is a dream that you are having as source. And so you need to understand that as source, you are perfect and you can accomplish anything.
Lynn, I love that so much because it is a barrier that holds people back. A long time ago, I did a video, I had a download when I was on the other side. And one of the videos I created is about helping people to bridge the gap from I hate myself or I dislike myself to getting to the point where they love themselves. And so there's a video, and I'll link it for people who want to. It's the mirror exercise is what I call it. But what do you tell people to do when they're feeling not so great about themselves and they can't feel their own magnificence?
Okay, one of the things that I've learned is that emotions build on themselves, whatever they are. So I use anger as an example. If you're angry, the more you express that anger, the more angry you become. And if you're feeling warm and loving, and the more you express that, the more warm and loving you become. So be aware of that and know that you have control. You have control. And another thing is that your thoughts, what you allow yourself to think about, thoughts are vitally important because they're source consciousness. You're not your own self. You are source consciousness. And every thought that you have, good or bad, goes into source.
I absolutely agree. So people will say in the comments that there's a lot of negativity in the world, and they talk about these bad things and things that we do. Being oneness, it's often difficult for people to understand how there are pieces of source that are acting in ways that are not loving. So what have you learned about that part that you can share with everybody?
Okay, we have 100% free will. We each life, because it's reincarnation. And if we don't do the chore that we're here to do in this life, we'll come back and do it in the next life. And it will just keep coming back until we accomplish what we've said we will do. Okay? We have egos. We have personalities. We have separation. When we come here, we have 100% amnesia about where we've been and what and all of that. And then we have to yearn and grow to the source eventually. And through lifetimes, as we evolve and grow back to source, we become more spiritual in our way of being. But the people who are not yet at the level where source is important to them, they make their decisions. Another thing I said about consciousness and thought. What you think, you bring to yourself. What you make choices based on your concepts and based on how you feel about something and your attitudes and so on. And so that's the bottom line of your being. And so um, attitude and outlook are vitally important. Those people who are creating issues for the world, I'm going to say something that people may really have a hard time with, and I hope that I don't lose you. And that is, it might, and I'm saying might, be because we needed a kick in the pants, because we were too complacent and too greedy and too self centered, and we needed to get to source, back to love, back to our reality. And so I think that these wars and all the things that are all the negatives that are happening right now, I think they're a catalyst for a new tomorrow. Because, and I think that new tomorrow is like 5 years away. It's not that far because boomers are going to die off very soon. And there's going to be a smaller population. The older population that is now controlling the world is going to be gone. And so we will be, the younger people will be the ones. And they are a different breed. They are so beautiful. The young people today are a whole, along together with the people who have had death experiences and the people who have had significant, other kinds of significant experiences, is transformative. And those people are changing the world. And they will be what's remaining. And after the boomers go. And so the world is going to be a whole different. The boomers are turning 80 now. So
Wow.
it's a
Yeah.
long time ago.
Yeah, it is a long time ago. I love that you talk about this because there's a lot going on in our world right now. We're recording this in 2025. AI is starting to really get the attention of people in the mainstream, and people are starting to understand how much and how quickly things are going to change. But you mentioned something about the change coming maybe in the next 5 years, so by 2030. So tell me what you're thinking, what you understand, what you've come to know, and why you think we're going to have a big change in that next 5 years.
Because the people are much more spiritual. When I first began this 20 years ago, um, when I went online, I did find lots of spiritual places, but nothing like today. Today, it's flooded. The 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 floodgates are open, and there are so many really beautiful spiritual people and seekers and people who are seeking, and they're beautiful too. And I think when people get to the point in their spiritual development that they are spiritual or speak seekers and so on, I think that they are very old souls that have grown and developed for a long, long, long time. And they've come back. They've come back to change the world and help it.
Oh my goodness, absolutely. I so agree with you. And I think it's even I'm going to take this one step further, and I'd love to hear what you think about this part of it. So you said that there are so many more people who are coming in, who are spiritual, who are awake, who are old souls, and that's changing the dynamic and the other ones are leaving. But I think it's even more than that. I think that when we see and hear from all of these spiritual people, when we see and hear all of these near-death experiences, it wakes the others up who maybe are not as old a soul, who
Right.
maybe were not on the same path as the ones who came in to make this change. And it only takes, I think, about 20% of the collective to flip and change the entire collective
I
into
love
a
it.
more positive direction. And I'd love to hear what you think about that.
Oh yeah, that sounds exactly on. I agree with that very, very much. And as I say, our young people today are very different. Now, I'm not talking about, I know that there are negative things happening with young people, but I would say the majority are more caring, more giving. They're very aware of the climate, and all of that, recycling, and so forth. And they don't get into the partying and drugs and, all of that. Like, it's just not where they're at anymore. They go out and camp. And
It's true.
I have a grandson who's 25, and that's what he does. Him and his gang go out and be in nature.
You're right. There's definitely a throwback to that I see with that generation.
Another point is that people are getting angry, and angry people will fight back. So they're maybe not there yet, but it will happen
It will happen.
because the changes that are happening are going to be too hard for people to bear. And that is going to be sad because there will be more deaths and more people leaving. And of course, that means they're going back to the light. So that's not a bad thing. But
Right.
it is from the point of view of giving to the world and being in the world and experiencing.
Yes. So you've already shared so much wisdom today in this interview, but I want to remind people that you wrote a book. And the reason that people write a book is not to make a ton of money because books take so much more effort and they just don't make a ton of money anymore unless, you're a super famous person. The reason people write a book is because we can have this wonderful conversation, but you cannot share everything succinctly in a certain order, in a certain way that you can in a written format that you've thought about and edited and you've put out into the world. So tell everybody about what your book is about and what they would get out of it.
Okay. Um, my book is called Beyond NDEs, The Next Step in Near-Death Experience Research. And what it's about is not about, I do talk about NDEs, of course, and what they are and those kind of things. So we do cover those things. But my primary goal is to talk about that spiritual knowledge that is coming back from NDEs and people who have had significantly transformative experiences and all kinds of other cool spiritual experiences. And so, and as you said, the people who are waking up. So, it's just wonderful. Yeah.
It is just wonderful.
Yeah.
Lynn,
Well,
I have so enjoyed this conversation. Is there anything, I feel like you have just so much wisdom. I want to grab and pull as much of it as I can out of you. Is there like one last message that you want everybody to know before we go?
yeah, love is the most important thing. And love yourself. That's a number one top. I don't care about loving others right now. Love you.
I think that's a mic drop moment. Lynn, thank you so much. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you for at the age of 87, when you could be doing anything you want with your life, wanting to come on and help the collective and help us understand more about why we're here. Just thank you so much for what you are helping to do, wake up the collective. It is so needed right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
And of course, this show is absolutely nothing without everybody who tunes in to watch. So thank you, everybody, for watching.
Bye.
Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.